Hello, everybody. I'm a practicing therapist and a doctoral student of psychology. Today, I wanted to go over some of the reasons why an interested avoidant will not pursue you. Now, interested could mean many things. It could be that they love you. It could be that you are in the friend zone and they want to be romantic with you but are not pursuing it. It could also be somebody you've been with for a long time and the romance is not as prominent as it once was, and you're wondering why they are not pursuing a more romantic connection with you. And these are very valid concerns. When you're in a relationship, romance is part of that fundamental foundation and comfort for the relationship to continue and progress. However, a lot of times avoidant individuals, they struggle with connecting and being romantic while simultaneously having feelings for somebody. The reason is going to be, we're going to discuss that. And the very first reason, okay, and this is a little bit more common when I guess they put you in the friend zone or they haven't pursued you ever romantically, is that they have a belief that being alone is just easier. They believe that they're meant to be alone. They believe that by being alone, they're not going to have to navigate the difficulties, right? They often convince themselves that being alone is easier than navigating the hardships of a relationship. Now, this belief, unfortunately, we call it a limiting belief in psychology, okay? This belief can prevent them from pursuing deeper connections. So, what does that mean? They can love you, they can be interested in you, they can care about you, and they're not going to pursue something, or they're less willing to, simply because they believe being alone is easier. They believe they're meant to be alone. Being alone just makes life much more simpler. And so when you put another person in the equation where there's deep connection and deeper feelings, they believe while that is going on, they also believe other symptoms of that could be hardship, could be rejection, could be humiliation, just conflict, whatever it is, and they don't want to experience that for whatever reason. However, it's very important to recognize if this is a case, this can be healed. And one way to heal, if you are the avoidant or if you're the partner of the avoidant, it's very important to recognize that not all relationships are the same blueprint. And if you prefer relationships that are less volatile or not as conflict forward, communicate that. And if your partner, of course, is an avoidant and you still feel like that's part of the reason, or your friend is an avoidant, whatever it may be, mention to them, if you want, you could mention, I think that we do have a connection. If you're apprehensive because you're afraid of how relationships typically go, or you think it's going to be conflict, or you feel like I'm going to pressure you, that's not the type of person I am. I hope that you know that about me, but I am feeling like there's something more. You can open that dialogue if you like. It's very important to recognize. Now, some of you guys are in this situation and you have opened that dialogue and your friend or your partner did not respond the way you wanted it to. Sometimes that means that they are still thinking about it, but they need some time. Give it time before bringing up the conversation again. But oftentimes if they return and they don't want to lose you, there is a sign that they are thinking about it, okay? They are still wrestling with the concept of maybe there's something romantic to pursue, okay? I'm not saying stick around, but I am saying this is what's probably happening in their mind, okay? The next one is that they feel like the setting might be inappropriate. Now, this is a little bit more common with dismissive avoidance, and often the reason is because they're afraid, not really afraid, I guess it really is. It doesn't feel like it though, but they tend to look at all the barriers of a relationship. Anxious is the other way around. They which is good. Both are their own style, right? But anxious individuals, they feel like all barriers can be overcome and you can fight against them and you can make it work. Avoidant individuals feel like barriers are almost permanent. You can't manage around them. They have that belief. It's not healthy. And so this context is like if you guys are colleagues, right? Or maybe you guys are in a business partnership, and this can discourage individuals in general from pursuing a relationship because they're afraid of the consequences. They may even feel like there's workplace policies against dating. However, I have seen a lot of individuals tend to meet their partner in the workplace, and so I'm not saying that if your partner is a colleague of yours that it's not going to happen. That's not what I'm saying, but it is a barrier. Typically, especially avoidance may be afraid that it's highlighted, or what will people think, or will it affect my job? And avoidants very much focus on their career, right? And so that's a common reason, okay? The next one is their fear of vulnerability in general. Avoidants are conditioned in their childhood to not feel comfortable with vulnerability because they were reprimanded to some extent when they express themselves, leading to emotional distance in general. And so their subconscious beliefs tend to have the strong reluctance towards any situation which vulnerability can be. Their vulnerabilities can be exposed and their feelings need to be expressed. Most individuals know in order to be in a romantic relationship, you have to express your feelings. Otherwise, the relationship is going to die. If they feel like they don't have those skills, why would they pursue something that's going to fail and hurt both of you guys? And so that's very important to recognize. So if you feel like your partner, this is their barrier, or your friend, you might want to mention, or not even mention, but be more comfortable sharing your own vulnerabilities. And when they do be vulnerable, accept them. I appreciate you sharing. I really like when you share. Things are hard, but I really appreciate that you shared that. Or you can keep it more, if you guys are just friends, you can sometimes mention, okay, I hear what you're saying. I feel that way too. So you make it a more relaxed bonding experience so they don't feel like it's highlighted. Now, if you're in a romantic relationship, a long-term romantic relationship, and your partner is still struggling to communicate and be vulnerable, this could be a conversation. I know that vulnerability is not really a comfortable situation. You could say, I myself don't always like to be vulnerable, but I do it because I feel like it's important. Where is your reluctance coming from? Am I doing something that's causing you to feel uncomfortable? Or what can I do to make it easier? What can we do to navigate this, right? You can have a conversation, especially if you guys are in a romantic relationship, okay? Now, the next one is more common with fearful avoidance, but it is dismissive as well, but much more common with fearful avoidance. They feel like the relationship will fail, or they feel like maybe you'll reject them, or you'll make fun of them, or whatever their fear is about the relationship failing. And so they would rather not try. They might even think, what's the point? I'm going to be rejected. Or what's the point? I'm meant to be alone. Or what's the point? You're going to make fun of me. Or you're never going to trust me. Or you're never going to like me if I show you the real me. And it doesn't mean there's something bad they're hiding. They just feel this way, right? And so that's another reason that could occur. The next one, this one sounds a little silly, okay? But it's not. It's something to be very aware of. And this, I feel like, is a little bit more common with female dismissive avoidance, and I'll explain it in a bit. They feel like you might be like overly communicative or flirtatious and charismatic. And they might feel like you're doing that with everybody, okay? And why I'm saying this is more common with female dismissive avoidance is actually, I think it's a better way of saying male, anxious, preoccupied, tends to be a little bit more forthcoming and romantic and expressive and like very wanting to care for their partner. And a female dismissive avoidant especially will think, okay, if you're so comfortable doing this with me, maybe you do this with everybody, right? And so she's picking at all the little things. And that might be true, it might not be. But if this is the reason where she feels like you're, I'm not saying that you're doing that, but she might feel like maybe you're flirting with everybody or you like everybody. It's really important to recognize or comfort that you could say something along the lines of, I really feel comfortable with you. I like to express myself with you. I feel really genuine around you. You can say things like that so that this fear goes away. Male dismissive avoidance do this as well, but it's a little more common with female dismissive avoidance, okay? And the next one is, I've made a video specifically about this, is they're afraid of ruining the friendship. Now, this is if you're in the friend zone, right? A person who is already a friend, especially for dismissive avoidance particularly, but both avoidance, they don't really open up with many people. So losing a friend in general does feel like a lot. And so if the romantic relationship does not end well, or it just ends in general, the friendship that they had, the bond they had is not going to be there. And what if they pursue you and your feelings, it's not reciprocated? They can't return to the feeling of friendship. It's hard for them and they lost that bond. And that can be very frightening, okay? And this one is important. It's the last one. It's not as common, but it does happen, okay? If you guys are in the talking stage, more specific to the talking stage, okay? And you have already picked fights or tried to change them, this could be that they do like you. They might even love you, but they might not pursue you because they're afraid, okay, if this is who you are when we're just dating or talking, who are you going to be when you're my boyfriend or my girlfriend? I don't know if I can handle that, right? And so if this is the case, back up on the fights. Be a little bit more willing to navigate things maybe a different way. Navigate conflict a little bit different. And I have a couple videos on navigating conflict and expressing yourself. And so I'm not going to make a whole mini video into another video about that. But in general, finding ways to be a bit more, I guess, less conflict forward may help while still getting your point across. And I mentioned I have videos on my channel about that. But I hope this video was helpful. I think it's very important to recognize that just because somebody is not pursuing you does not mean they don't like you. You deserve to know they very well could. So these are the reasons. And so if you know the reasons and you are able to navigate them or figure them out together, you could very well have a romantic relationship, okay? I hope this video was helpful. Please like, subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one.